This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
It's 11:07 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast, and you're on Ask a Rabbi.
And this is Rabbi Shafir Lobb of Congregation Eitz Chayim, your Jewish home on the Treasure Coast. And welcome to the Days of Awe, the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And so we're going to see if we can get this to go. It's being a pain, but we'll see.
By the way, I happened to talk to an old, believe it or not, grade school nun who's still alive. She's wonderful. Anyway, I was joking with her. She heard the show about, confessing the sins and stuff on Yom Kippur. And she said, if you started pounding your chest today, you wouldn't be able to cover all your sins by the time of the show. That was about 4 days ago.
Well, she'd be right.
She'd definitely
be right. But again, Yom Kippur is not about sins against humans. It's sins against God.
Isn't that the same?
Sometimes not. Right? We're obligated to satisfy the sins against humans before coming and talking to God about sins to God.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's all a relative thing, and folks, there's a little bit of hesitation in my voice because I'm trying to parallel process and get my little Mevo here to behave, which it is not.
She's got about 9 million electronic devices in front of her.
Yeah, I do. And last week they all behaved, and today
no,
they're not. Yeah, that would be right. So at least I've got that going. That's we'll see how else it goes.
Maybe the machines need to be dipped in
what?
Starbucks coffee.
There we go. They need something,
Wake
that's
up.
for sure. And okay, we are live on both formats. And that's encouraging. So, yeah. My phone will do it and my iPad won't. I don't know what the problem is. Gotta love technology,
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it.
All right. Anyway, I did want to express, so there's a couple things with Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. Some people think that, you're, that it's an automatic. Now, there is a part of it that's automatic, but unfortunately, there's a ton of work. I like to say that to my congregation. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that anything for which, here's the kicker, you are truly repentant and have done appropriate restitution, you will be forgiven by God. The bad news is that you have to really be repentant and have done the restitution.
Well, let's see. I got 2 strikes there. Oh.
There I go with another, I got to get sensitive to that. That is part of my, that's part of my work for 5782 is to be more aware of what comes out of my mouth. And that's something we all can do, actually. I'll offer that to folks. Think about what comes out of your mouth without you paying attention. Sorry?
Wouldn't that be refreshing?
It would be.
Yep.
For all of us. So I'm also being plagued by a fire ant bite that just decided right now is the time to tell me, hi, I'm here. I love how they do that. The fire ant bites that you get. I got this one grilling some ribs the other day.
Oh, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. Well, backyard, we can do it on the outside, right?
By the way, how did the virtual ceremony go?
The virtual ceremony? You mean the wedding? That wasn't virtual.
No.
Oh, the service?
Your virtual
Our service. Well,
yeah.
I think it went well. We were on, you talk about having technology in front of you. I had 2 computers, my iPad and my phone, all going on the Torah table on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and we shifted things around for Shabbat, for Rosh Hashanah morning, so we could bring Torah out. But there I am in all the technology, and I think it went reasonably well. It was certainly a lot more work for me to manage both the technical and the prayerful, but I got into it, and that it made it flow. We had pieces that were pre-recorded, and I do want to thank Jay License, and I want to thank Craig Taubman for the 40 Holy Days project that brought a lot of wonderful music into our sanctuary. Through that license, we are able to use music for those artists who have agreed to it and be able to share their beautiful work with our congregation.
That's awesome. Did I see some video of you?
You may have.
During that with the horn and stuff?
Yeah, you may have. I also managed to really not do well with the horn one of the times. And that was I'm sorry to Stuart. Stuart came around to particularly hear it, and that was probably the single worst shofar blowing I've done in 20 years.
Oh no.
Sometimes it happens.
Oh yeah.
And
hey, it's live.
It's live, and stuff happens. One set was really good, and the next set not so good. I'm known in the congregation. They make a game of it to time how long I can blow the shofar, because I do I almost brought it in with me today.
You should.
Now maybe I'll bring it next time, even though it'll be after the holiday. That's fine. We're supposed to actually blow the shofar at the beginning of every month, every new moon.
I got a deal for the temple.
Yeah? Okay. Do I want to know?
Let's start a pool to see how long.
There you go. See how long the rabbi can blow.
You can raise money.
Yeah, to have people take.
Yeah, to throw in $5 and say, okay, let's see how long she. Yeah, just.
I could do it 3 times and whatever. Yeah. That is a game that people do play, and it's a little bit of fun to see how long I can blow the shofar, because I do a decent job. I do a decent job of it.
And it's called shofar?
Shofar. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To blow the shofar.
And that is like a ram's horn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, Mevo is being fussy. I love technology. Oh, no, it's got... Yeah, it's in a mood for following my face. Thank you, Mevo. Oh, well.
As if you're flying around the studio here.
Yeah. But, it's got this thing about it follows me, so. Technology is wonderful when it listens to you instead of making you listen to it. And that's always the challenge, as people are now getting seasick watching my my movement.
Your movement. Oh, no.
I love technology. All right, we're going to have this argument with my cell phone.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Okay, it's going to be nicer now. What can I say?
World War III in the studio.
Yeah, the technology wars. And so as I said, the good news is that you can be forgiven. The bad news is that you have to do the work to get there. And most people reluctantly are not willing to do that. That's why we have a whole day of sitting in prayer and pondering those things. And we're not asking forgiveness for ourselves. That's an important piece. It's not about you, it's about the community. The sins are confessed. Asham knew. We sinned. We were arrogant. We were prejudiced. We were this. We were that. It's a long litany of sins because, as the woman pointed out, it takes a long time to go through all of them over and over again. And the idea is that if you are aware of your neighbor sinning, or somebody in your community, then you have a responsibility to help them fix that. Once you become aware, it's not as much about guilt as it is about responsibility and liability. Because we are, in fact, responsible one for the other. That's a Jewish teaching, that whenever anybody in the community does something that is harmful to others, all of us are damaged by that. And that is true. I can remember my father teaching me, my father of blessed memory, when I was little, that the way to move up in the world is to continually elevate people and not take pot shots at them and not cut them. Because when you do that, you fall, because you damage the support on which you're standing. And when you raise everybody up, you raise with them. You rise with them. And when you knock people out from under you, then they're not there to help you when you need it.
You've got a house of cards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that was probably one of the most important teachings that he ever gave me. And the key is, as Stuart mentioned in Ask a Lawyer, disagreement is healthy. Having differing opinions helps you explore what really matters, what's right and what's wrong, and evaluate things. But it should never be done in anger. It should never be done with hostility. It should never be done with ultimatums. All of those things are not constructive. And when you do that, you start destroying that house of cards. You start burning that bridge. You start doing all of those things that hurt you and the community. And that's the challenge. And we need to be civil. It's not to be nice and pretend that something's not happening. That's not the point. But the point is to be civil to people, to recognize that everybody, even the people you can't stand, are God's creation. Everybody is God's creation. Everybody is a human being. Everybody is a universe of everything. And one of the things that I know a lot of people have always heard me say is that when you are looking at somebody, you don't just take the good or the bad, you take the package. What does the entire person bring to the table? Are they constructive or are they not constructive? If they're constructive, then take the gifts that they're offering, and if they're not, then protect yourself and others. That doesn't mean destroy them, it just simply means protect yourself. And we can do that civilly. We can do that as human beings who care about each other. The Christian phrase that I often hear is hate the sin but love the sinner. The idea that we are separate from our actions, and actions can be corrected. Behavior can be modified. People can learn. Even when they're 99, they can still learn things. Even when they're 103, assuming they're still breathing, they can learn things. As long as you have breath, you can learn. When you stop breathing, it's a little more difficult. Then you're in a different realm for somebody else to teach you. But as long as you're part of our group, you can learn things no matter how old you are. There's a prayer that we say, what's the difference between the wise and the foolish? The wise know they can change and learn. The foolish think they have no choice. We always have choices. We always have choices. We don't have to give in to things. We can control our own responses to things. I know that I've talked about it also different times, that the family that I saw getting on the tram at the airport, where the child turns to dad and says, Johnny hit me or whatever it was. And the dad looks down at him and says, you're old enough now to not return it. You don't have to give tit for tat. You don't have to escalate. You don't have to get even.
Sure.
You have to do what is best for all concerned. And again, that doesn't mean allowing somebody to hurt you and just sitting there and taking it, but it means being intelligent and wise in how you respond to appropriately protect yourself and others from the harm that's being projected. And no, that's not easy. It's not easy. Nobody said life was going to be easy. I don't recall that being the promise given anywhere along the line. Life is for living. Life is for enjoying. and we have choices there too. Do we admire the flower? Do we enjoy the pet in our life? Do we enjoy the good people in our lives? Or do we isolate ourselves and live miserably and can always see the negative, always see the problems? That's the choice we have. Are we negative or positive? There's another line in the Yom Kippur liturgy that says, the glass is either half empty or half full. To the glass, it makes no difference. Right? To the glass, it makes no difference how you view it.
Yeah.
But to you, it can make all the difference in the world. And do you look at the half empty as potential for what to fill it with? Or do you look at it as something lacking? A story that was told by one of my mentors, Rabbi Shafir Lobb, told this story of one of her family members who loved to collect elephants. That was her joy. Whenever a birthday or an anniversary or something of that ilk came around, it was very easy to give her something because all you had to do was look for an elephant she didn't already have, and you could give her an elephant. And she stored them in a beautiful case at the base of a flight of stairs. And this one day, her husband tripped on the stairs and came tumbling down the stairs. He was okay, but he crashed into this curio case, this break front, and it and a number of the elephants were. I don't know if it was hurt. I don't think it was, or they could repair whatever happened to it. But a number of the elephants were destroyed. And the next time somebody gave her an elephant, she commented that there wasn't any room in the case, but there were all these holes where elephants had been broken. But her case was now filled with what was missing and what was damaged. And so she was unable to appreciate new gifts or even the survivors of that incident. Stuff breaks, folks. And it's stuff. And yes, it's only stuff. And I've a wonderful lead crystal collection for my mother. My mother loved to collect lead crystal, and I've got a beautiful break front filled beyond capacity with beautiful lead crystal. Very old lead crystal. Gorgeous. And every once in a while a piece will break, and it's, to me, it's no big deal. I still have so much. And I have occasionally pondered, do I want to take this big collection down to 2 or 3 pieces? I'll still remember everything about the joy my mother had with the crystal. She did a lot of in-home entertaining. She used the crystal extensively. It was always in beautiful display in the house being used. For me, it sits in this break front. And so my memories are overfilled in this break front. And I've often wondered that I might be better off taking it down to just a few select pieces that maybe she liked or that I like particularly, and locking my memories on those rather than having them in the 50 to 60 pieces I've got.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did your mom have a lot of celebrations at home?
Yeah.
With the temple folks?
Well, especially when my father was alive, and most of the crystal that she had came from him. They were gifts from him to her. She adored lead crystal, and everywhere they went, they would stop at a store that sold lead. You don't see that as much anymore.
I get it. No, but I get that.
So she's got incredibly gorgeous pieces, and if a congregation would give a gift to her, which often happened, it would, if they knew her at all, it would be a piece of crystal. So there were these just spectacular pieces of crystal. I think I've got 3 water carafes that are spectacular. I don't need 3 water carafes. She did. She would have in the home a Seder for 20-some people and think nothing of it.
Do you have those big, long tables at home?
We have a super triple length, extra length dining room table from the days when they made that. And it's got 3 18-inch extensions in it.
Oh, my.
And so
Okay.
it is this very long, beautiful table. And I still have that wooden table from her. It's wood. And it
Real
needs,
wood.
Real wood. It needs pads on top of it to protect it. And yes, the wood has been a little bit damaged here and there, but it's a beautiful piece. And it's got a matching buffet and a matching credenza. And the crystal's in that credenza, and it's in a couple of other showcases because there's just enough of it. But she would have it out. She'd have some of it on the coffee tables, holding candies and nuts and chips and all those things that you used to put out for the days when people entertained like that. I don't entertain anywhere near like that. First of all, I have a couple of four-legged children who probably would.
I was going to say they'd love that crystal.
Oh, they definitely. Well, they love what's in the crystal, yes.
Well, that too.
Mm-hmm. And I can remember we had dogs when I was little, occasionally finding the remains of nuts that the dogs had cracked on the floor. They had eaten out the nuts. They're
Any
very
cheese?
good at that.
Any cheese in there for the dogs?
There was when she did it, but not. Not that I recall the dogs getting to.
Oh, my.
So she was careful about that. She always put the things that they were most likely to grab higher than they were. But sometimes they would, if people weren't paying attention. And if we did have company, they were frequently in the bedroom wishing they were part of the community. Yeah. We had one Cocker Spaniel that we had when I was very, very little, the first dog that I remember. And his name was Floppy because he had this habit when he was a puppy that he would stand on his ears that were, of course, floppy. And he wasn't bright enough to lift his paw to get it off of the ear. He would take his other paw and try to knock it off the ear that he was standing on. And so he got the name Floppy. And Floppy was his name. And he was a very smart little dog. When my parents entertained, he would park himself next to the shortest legs under the table because he had figured out over time that that's where the most food dropped. And he kept the floor very nice and clean for her. So that's part of my memory of dogs. But yeah, I don't entertain anywhere near like what they did. And I don't know anybody who does that kind of extravagant
I was going to say, isn't
entertaining.
that generational?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think today we just don't do that kind of entertaining anymore. Certainly not during COVID. And, we'll see where things go when things start to loosen up. And God willing, they will within a year. I hope so. I hope we can get this under control. It's been rough. I was hoping I was wrong, and you know that I've said that this is going to be a 2-year event. And I said that a year ago, that we were in for a long haul, and we are. It's still ongoing. And with that, I have to say that, I traveled. I traveled to Connecticut for a wedding that was delayed a year thanks to COVID. It was supposed to have happened last fall, well ahead of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because according to the Gregorian calendar, they were late in September that year. This year, of course, it's early and we're between the two holidays. And so the wedding was right up against it, but it was a wonderful wedding. It was up in Connecticut.
What town in Connecticut?
Simsbury.
Yeah, wow, it's right near where Carol and I used to live in Burlington. Yeah,
Simsbury
yeah,
or Simsbury?
Simsbury.
Simsbury.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Went into Hartford and got a car and drove out to yay technology. Right? Plug it into the phone and off you go. And I loved that this particular setup knew how to query the phone for the last 2 or 3 things you had asked it and asked you which of those you wanted, and you could hit the button and boom, off you went.
So you flew into beautiful Bradley?
Yes, which is
Hartford?
undergoing construction
Oh,
at the moment.
they've been
And
rebuilding that airport since the 70s.
I think that's a common thing at
I
airports.
I think that is, yes.
It was a nice flight in. It's a beautiful little airport, 30-some gates.
It is, yeah.
It's a cute little airport. And the car rentals were all off. The Enterprise was supposed to be in terminal, but not until this particular phase of construction's over. They're only like 3 blocks away. You wait longer for the van to come and go than you do for the van to get where it's going when you get on it. The
Enterprise people are so nice up there.
They were. It was interesting though. Alamo National and Enterprise are all together. They're in one building, and they were very short staffed. They had 2 people doing all of the reservations for all 3 lines.
Wow.
And so the line was through the building and out with our 6 feet. It didn't take long to get outside. Fortunately, it wasn't really hot outside, a little humid, but it was raining, but everybody was clustered under the overhang. There's a lot more overhangs in Connecticut than there are here.
No, that's true.
Actually, the wedding venue was beautiful. It was a beautiful tiled patio, fully covered, but open on all sides. So you had this open feeling, and yet it was sheltered by lines of cypress trees, so that there was not much wind, and the rain that was falling didn't fall in on the people or get anybody wet. Just the edges, the stairs into and out of this patio were a little bit wet. But we were under this shelter, so that was kind of nice. It didn't actually rain during the time that we left the main building to get to the patio and got under the cover. Nobody got wet other than the bottoms of some hems.
So was this afternoon, evening?
It was a morning wedding.
Morning,
okay. It was 10:30 in the morning, because they wanted the beautiful it's a gorgeous venue. It's called the Riverview. It's where the wedding was.
I've heard of that.
And it's a spectacular facility. They had 2 weddings ongoing, and we never saw the other wedding group.
Wow, yeah.
That's how big and extensive this property is. And there was a ballroom that had tables were well spaced for the meal. There was a cocktail hour that went 90 minutes. It was an hour and a half. It was extensive. And the wedding, of course, itself. And we were able to transition in and out of there. Even though it was raining, it stopped raining long enough for everybody to come and go. It was
nice.
Yeah, the weather participated, which was, very nice, because it was rainy. And a lovely couple. I've known her since she was just starting college, just going away to college. And it was quite a delight to be there for her wedding.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really
nice. It is nice when you know the family. And there are a couple of weddings that I've been lucky enough to have really known the bride or the groom, and it does make it a joy. It's so much more fun. Not that it isn't fun to because you get to know the couple as you prepare for the wedding. But, yeah, there's a special joy in people that have been family friends.
Okay, in the Jewish tradition then, are there like wedding classes, if you will, like
there's counseling before the wedding happens, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not mandated per se, but I don't know any rabbi who would want to be responsible for officiating without having some sense that the couple had the tools necessary to work their way through conflict. And I have had a couple of couples that broke up during the counseling period, and the wedding got canceled.
Whoa!
And other couples that hopefully learned some ways of talking and resolving conflict. We live in a society where if people don't get along, they torch each other and everything breaks up. That gets back to that discussion earlier of having differing opinions. You can have different opinions and still love each other. You don't have to agree about everything. And you choose your battles, as they say. Worry about the things that really are important. Don't worry about whether or not there's applesauce or sour cream on your latkes.
What about, how does the rabbi feel about the mixed marriages, mixed religions?
Mixed religions. Mixed religions are a challenge, and they're a fact of life. They are a fact of life today. And that requires some working through. For example, the Catholic Church requires that the children be raised Catholic. I'm expecting a Jewish home if I'm going to do a Jewish wedding.
Yeah.
Because why bother to do a Jewish wedding if you're not, in fact, going to have a Jewish home? Does that mean that both halves of the wedding have to be Jewish? No, but they have to make that commitment about children. And it's different depending. Every couple is different. Every marriage is different. And so what I tell people who contact me, I'm not going to tell you yes or no. And that's true if both are Jewish. I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm not going to stand there in front of you and ask you to take an oath unless I believe you're going to follow through. Period. I think that's only reasonable. And it was quite a tickle to me that the first video that came out of this wedding from less than a week ago. Wow, it's amazing how much I did in a week. That the videographer sent them a teaser, a trailer of what's coming.
Yeah, you bet.
And the opening of it is actually the welcome that I do to the chuppah, which is, blessed are you who come in God's name, who come in the name of love. And that's my voice is the voiceover on the video as they come. Because there's a blessing that I say about, may we all rejoice in the love shared by the couple.
That's nice.
Yeah, and I name them, and my weddings are very personal. They're very, very personal. And they're tailored to the individuals who are getting married.
That's so cool. Now, you say Jewish home. Does that also include Hebrew school?
It should, if there's children.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, if there's children, it should include bringing them up so that they know what it is to be Jewish. There's a lot of people who, I think that religion is simply celebrating Hanukkah in some candles and gifts and latkes, and Christmas is a tree and lights and a jolly fat man in a red suit. That's missing the point of both holidays. Very much so. And those are issues that I think need to be discussed. And certainly you can't both do a bris on a child and baptize them. You can't do all of the rituals of both religions and have something cohesive that comes out of it. Yes, the couple can love each other. They do have to make a choice because the child will make a choice. And the child will make the choice based on the consistency of what's said. And if you're trying to teach mutually opposite teachings, there's going to be some challenges for the children. A lot of the kids end up not believing any religion because of the conflicts. And I think that's what parents don't realize. They're not going to pick one or the other, but because they are exposed to what doesn't make any sense, they often, and I see that in college, I see that in the college kids, they say there's nothing there. And those are serious issues. I'm not saying which way a couple should choose by any stretch of the imagination, but there needs to be some logic and some cool-headedness before the baby's in diapers as to what and how you're going to do.
Sure.
It's not about love. It's about family.
Okay, with your college kids now at IRSC, how many of them are religious?
Very few. Very few.
That's okay.
Yeah. I would say less than 20%.
Wow.
Some of them are exploring, and many have rejected. Others are gung ho, whatever the parents were. If one parent delivers a strong, consistent message, the child is likely to follow that message.
Interesting. Okay.
And usually in mixed marriages, you don't get two strong messages. If you do, the child often ends up with nothing.
Wow. That's scary.
It is scary.
That number is scary.
Port St. Lucie County is only about 20 to 25% affiliated, which is why you don't see more churches and synagogues around.
That's why you have a lot of problems, too.
I think that there's a relationship.
Sure.
I don't think that morals necessarily come from religion. I don't think that people are only good because they're afraid of what will happen to them. Certainly that is not the Jewish teaching. The Jewish teaching is that people are inherently good. Judaism starts with that concept. We are inherently good. We are perfectly human, which means that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to err. We're going to need to do this restitution and forgiveness and learning and growing thing yearly. In fact, Rabbi Zalman Schechter Shalomi of the Renewal Movement taught that you need to do one of those every month. You need to do a little one, what he called Yom Kippur Katan, a small Yom Kippur, every new month, so that you weren't loaded with this baggage coming into Yom Kippur, so that you had done some work, and it makes you, I think, a better person. And we actually do a small thing at the beginning of every service. There's the second prayer that we say in our service is Hineni Muchan Uzumam Lekabel Alai Mitzvat Aseh Ve'ahavta L'Reacha Kamocha. I am prepared completely to take upon myself the positive mitzvah, the mitzvah that requires some effort, coming out of the book of Leviticus, you shall love each person as you love yourself. And, obviously when Jesus quoted that, he was quoting Leviticus. People don't realize that. They think that Jesus created it. He was quoting the third book of Scripture. It's in the very middle of that middle book of Torah. You shall love each person as you love yourself. The challenge there is twofold. One, you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. You can't. You don't have the compassion and the empathy to give to others if you don't have them for yourself. Conversely, you also need to take care of yourself so that you are there to help take care of others. It's the airline thing of put the mask on yourself first and then put it on your child, your loved one, etc. Because if you try to do them first and it doesn't work, you're not going to be there. They're not going to be able to help you do it when you need it.
So, turning the clock back a couple semesters, Jesus would have celebrated Yom
Absolutely.
Kippur.
Yeah, absolutely. He would have celebrated it in the way that it was celebrated when the temple was standing, because in his lifetime, the temple was standing. It doesn't get destroyed until he's probably 30 to 40 years after his death. So he would have celebrated it in the way that people would have come and participated in the ritual at the temple, where the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies the one time of year that he would go in, and there was this wonderful goat ritual that they did, and that's a ritual that really needs some unpacking for people to understand. It's where the idea of the scapegoat comes from. There are two goats that are brought in front of God. They're hand-raised goats, and one is for the sins that you've worked on, and the other one is for the sins that you still need to work on.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that's as good a place as any to say that part of our Yom Kippur celebration, and I'm going to say that it's a celebration. It's an amazing time to come to God. But part of what we do at Congregation Eitz Chayim is we do have a goat ritual. It's the only locked door part of the holiday for us, the holy day. And we close the door. If you're not there at the beginning of the ritual, you don't get in. The doors to the temple are actually locked so that people can't come in. It's obviously set so that we can get out, but nobody else can come in, because if you aren't there to hear the beginning, then the ritual makes no sense. I discovered that in my Tucson congregation when I didn't lock the door and people came and went and they had no idea what it was about because they only saw the last few minutes of it and they did not understand what was happening with the goats.
Come on, Rabbi, give me the USA Today version.
The USA Today, it's very powerful. As I said, part of it is the sins that you've worked on, and part of it's the sins that you need to. And beyond that, I invite you to go ahead and read the story of the goats in the story of Yom Kippur in the first 5 books. Well, in the 2nd through 5th. It's described in there, and we go from that. We work from that. We also use a beautiful story written by Dr. Eric Mendelsohn of Toronto. He gave us permission to use his story of the wild cats. That's an amazing addenda to the 2 goats. But you'd have to be there to understand that. No, I'm not going to give you a USA Today.
Thank you.
So.
Okay.
What can I say?
Okay. That is interesting, though, with the goat part of it.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. So I recommend that to anybody who's thinking about it. You have to sign up for it, especially today. Vaccines required, masks required. We will be doing it masked, and we will send out the goat. That's the USA version. The goat sent out. And that actually involves our first responders. They take care of that for us.
There you go. Now, how many folks do you think you'll have inside the temple for the service?
Not that many. We're restricting it quite a bit. We're not a big sanctuary, but we do offer Zoom links. People can register on www.eitzchayim.org, eitzchayim.org. You can still register for Yom Kippur, and you can get the Zoom links, or you can watch us on Facebook Live. And we do invite people to do that. And so far, it seems to be working well. As I respond here to people who put comments in, I do there as well.
That's great.
So.
In a way, that's been a gift of this pandemic. If there are any positives you could take out of it, is that the Zoom technology has just shrunk the entire world.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely has. Absolutely. Technology is great. We've been actually Zooming our entire time. We live streamed that very first service 7 years ago.
Nice.
7 years ago. We live streamed it. That one was at Tradition. That was our very first Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I can remember Stuart Address putting up his laptop and streaming it directly to YouTube, much like Ask a Rabbi goes on YouTube. And that service was streamed. And before we did streaming, we did something called Blog Talk Radio.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Even in Tucson, we did Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah.
So that people in those days could at least listen to it. And I'll give a tribute to that, to the Roberta broadcast system that Rabbi John Spitzer in Canton, Ohio, some of their services, back when Rabbi Spitzer was the rabbi, were streamed onto the temple broadcast system. I think one service a month back in those days. But the idea, when it came up in Tucson, did we want to do that? Do we want to do that for people who are shut in, for people who are sick? How do we bring them into the service when they can't physically come to the service? And streaming is the way. And that's part of why I've always had this relationship with technology. It's not that, you know that. I don't like listening to myself. I don't like any of that kind of thing. And yes, I need to do some of it because, as I learned 2 weeks ago, there are habits that I need to break, and I'm working on those. You don't do that if you don't self-critique. But because I see so much of the technology and so much of it, I don't really want to see a whole lot of me. And I am able to compartmentalize, I guess, and become the VCR editor and director that I did in college a few years ago. And I can look at, so I'm looking here at what's going on technologically.
VCR?
Oh, yeah, that funny stuff where you use the pencil to move the tape around, and you had these big cassettes, and that was the joy of my Volvo on campus because the equipment all fit in the trunk on the Volvo.
Oh, yeah, big trunk.
So my car was allowed on the green swards of the campus because I was taking the VCR equipment, usually with assorted people holding this and that and trailing around the campus. I always wanted to go under the arch, and I never did have the courage to do it. There was a wonderful arch, and it's still there as far as I know in the front of the campus. But I was on the football field with it. I drove up on the grass up to the basketball building court thing and all the different places. And I went to Ursinus, which is at the time known for having a tree in the end zone because the Ursinus bear lived there.
Wait a minute. Back up.
Had
What?
a tree in the end zone
A tree
that
in the end
nobody would
zone.
cut down because the Ursinus bear, the college mascot, lived there. You couldn't destroy his home.
Oh, boy.
It's one of the pieces of trivia. Lightning eventually struck it.
I was going to say.
Lightning did eventually strike it, and they actually took the tree and they made little mementos that you could buy in the bookstore for a while.
let's
Of the
buy
tree
that
that was
tree.
in the end zone. Yeah. Why not?
$29.95. You can have
Buy a piece of tree.
piece of tree.
I think that's about what they charge too for a small piece of it, mounted on plaques or made into keychains. There was a number of things.
So you need to bring some of the parts of the tree down for your plant sale.
I don't think they were living anymore.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
But there is another plant sale coming in a few weeks.
See, I was going to get
Get
you
there.
in there.
Yeah, plant sale coming. And somebody just gave me some wonderful cuttings of something called a spinach tree. So I'm hoping that some of those will be ready for.
Like spinach?
It's not. It is actually more nutritious than spinach, but you have to cook it in order to get the young leaves. I understand you can eat directly, but the older leaves, and they get to be about the size of your hand.
Oh, wow.
That you can
Okay.
cook and butter. There's a number of YouTubes out on it. You don't want to not do it because it's got some toxic stuff that cooks out when you cook it.
You boil it?
Yeah, you can boil it,
Yeah.
and then it's tasty.
Huh.
So, lots of things change in the cooking. Cashews are toxic if they're not cooked.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
I always wonder how people figured out to cook things like that. Cashews fascinate me because it's inside a very big fruit that doesn't taste very good. I'm guessing, again, that if you cook it, it's got toxins in it, and they don't taste good. But anyway, people have discovered things by cooking, by this and thating, and changing how things are done. It's amazing what we can and have done and as a species on this planet. Hopefully, in the long run, we're making the world better rather than worse. That's certainly the tone of this time. And the tone is that forgiveness is really important. And that's actually, I'll come full circle back to the wedding. We start the wedding by blanketing the couple with with forgiveness, rather. We're thankful for their love, and we also teach them a formula for asking for and giving forgiveness, because that is probably one of the key things for people to remember. I can remember when I was about to be ordained, we visited. I was then living in Ohio, and Rabbi Zalman Schechter Shalomi came to Oberlin. One of his children was graduating. Children or grandchildren, I'm forgetting now which it was. But in any event, he was the keynote speaker because of his family connection. And I went to see him at Oberlin because he was so close to me. Oberlin was not that far from where we lived. And the best time to talk to Zalman was between his walking from the advisor that I had worked with, who was an advisor on Oberlin, is one of my mentors as well, between there and the hotel. And you think that when you're going to walk with an 80-year-old man that it's going to be a slow, leisurely walk. Let me tell you, I was huffing and puffing, and so was Bill of the long legs to keep up with Zalman and Eve, his wife.
He was a fit 80
He's
years
very fit. He loved to walk. He walked every day. And so we're huffing and puffing along with him. And Eve gave me some advice. Her advice was integrate your own shadow. And Zalman pulled Bill over to him and said, I'm going to give you one word for her being a rabbi. And Bill looked at him and said, what? And he said, forgiveness. Remember that. Forgiveness.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I know why he said that. And Bill has been amazingly tolerant, because when you're a rabbi, everybody's crisis is the rabbi's crisis. Everybody's. It doesn't matter. And if you aren't right there with everything that they want and need, then they think you haven't done a good job of being the rabbi. And it doesn't matter what's happening in your family. It's what's happening in theirs. And sometimes that has meant that I turn to Bill and say, I know we're at a restaurant having dinner, and I'll see you later at home. Because that's happened too. The calls have come in the middle of dinner, out to dinner.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Emergencies, you bet.
Emergencies. Yeah. I'm thinking particularly of a suicide intervention right at the moment. There was this time of year, a little bit earlier in the year, because we were working on the edits for what was then to be the brand new prayer book, the Yom Kippur prayer book. And I did not get to proof it because I had 4 suicide interventions in a month. And
Whoa.
they typically came between 8 and 11 at night for whatever reason. And one of those happened at the restaurant. And we had just been served dinner when the call came in. I remember that one vividly. And so there were a number of typos in the prayer book. And that year we got to the very tail end of Yom Kippur. And the computer had done one of its autocorrects. And the prayer was weirdly mangled. And I read it in the prayer book, and I looked out at the congregation and I said, I have no idea what this is supposed to say. And so, you have to own stuff. That's part of it. And of course, that was the perfect day to do that. So I will wish everybody who does participate in Yom Kippur, have an easy fast. May the day go well with you. And we'll see you on the other side of Yom Kippur. I will be probably cottage cheese next Friday. But see you after Yom Kippur. If you do celebrate it, have a gentle and easy time. Chag Sameach. Happy 5782. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb, and this has been Ask a Rabbi.
You've been listening to Ask a Rabbi right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. Talk of the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world.